Hello, cinefans. I'm Kendall Kruver, and this is Watching Classic Movies. My guest is Nelson Page, Executive Director of the Barrymore Film Center in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Fort Lee is the birthplace of the United States film industry. The center is an evolving cultural institution which reflects that history. It features a repertory movie theater that brings back the comforts and style of classic cinema, and a museum that is free to the public, and has already been a source of great fascination to its visitors in the 5 months it has been open. We talked about what the center has to offer, the history of film in Fort Lee, and how the future of cinema is just as exciting as its past. Welcome, Nelson. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, congratulations on really a fairly recent opening of the Barrymore Film Center. I mean, October 2022. It hasn't even been a year. How's it been going?
Well, it's almost 5 months today, and it's been great. We're a repertory theater here, and so we're showing classic films, independent films. And when I say independent films, I'm talking about films that are not backed by studios, that don't have wide releases. We're also talking about emerging filmmakers, student films, and we run the gamut. I mean, so one day you can see the Oscar-nominated short films, and the next day you can see, Robert Redford in The Natural. Or the next day you can see D.W. Griffith, Orphans Storm, or you can see another silent film with live, either orchestral or organ accompaniment, since we have both here at the Film Center.
And it looks like you have a great deal of themed programming when it comes to the repertoire element of it.
Yeah, absolutely. This way, it keeps people focused. We never repeat a film. So, for example, when we have this coming weekend, we're showing a themed weekend play ball for the opening of baseball season. You're going to see Pride of the Yankees. You're going to see The Natural. You're going to see 42. You're going to see A League of Their Own. You're going to see Field of Dreams. So that gives you, a little bit of context as to how we try and do these things.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. And then you also have a museum, which I believe the admission is free?
The admission is free. This is part of our educational component. When the Borough of Fort Lee saw fit to build this facility, that was part of the deal that we made with the community. And that's that we have a situation where we do change exhibits every 6 months. The exhibit that just ended this past weekend was called The Royal Family of Fort Lee, the Barrymores. So, and the reason why we named the Film Center after the Barrymore family is because they actually lived here in Fort Lee and made their first films here. So that would be John, Ethel, and Lionel Barrymore. Their father, Maurice, actually had he was a Broadway actor, and he actually had a residence here in town. So the kids came to live with Dad, and they all got their starts here in Fort Lee theatrically and in film as well. So that we thought this is a way of honoring them. Somebody came to me the other day and said, "Oh, I guess Drew Barrymore has given you a sizable donation." Well, the answer is no. It has nothing to do with their donation. It has to do with honoring their contribution, to film and to the Broadway stage.
Right. Well, when I first found out about the center, and it was a couple of years before it opened, I thought, now, why hasn't there been something like this before? But then it occurred to me that, well, it took so long for the Academy Museum to be opened, and that's a company town. Well, it's been a long time since you've had that kind of a film culture in Fort Lee. It's neither easy to begin or to keep going. How has the process of that been?
Well, again, we have a terrific mayor. His name is Mark Sokolich. It was his vision that wanted this building here. There was a 16-acre plot of land in the middle of town that had gone undeveloped for many, many years, and it was under his leadership that the town built some residential, built some condos, built retail, mixed use, and he thought that this would be a great economic development engine to bring people to downtown, which it certainly is. This also honors Fort Lee's, amazing film history. From 1903 to probably 1920, Fort Lee was the motion picture capital of the world. And people go, "Oh, no, because they made a couple of films." No. There were over 4,000 films that were made here. This was the original film town. I mean, whatever they did in Hollywood, this was done here first. This is where the studios were. This is where the laboratories were. This is where the set shops were, the costume shops were here. And you had 17 studios, all right, within 1.5 square mile area, unlike quote unquote Hollywood, which those studios were spread out over an area twice the size of Bergen County. Everybody was, back to back shooting here. They originally came from New York, okay, shooting on 14th Street. They came over here for, location shooting, but it made more sense. Now people say, well, why did it all move out west? Well, one of the reasons was, and maybe people can go into it later on, they can read, was the Edison's Patents Trust. They would break up your set, or take your film away from you if you didn't pay a royalty to the Edison Patents Trust Company. So that made people want to, be as close to Mexico as they possibly could to protect their intellectual property. But so by the early 30s, it was all gone, and all these studios lay abandoned. And unfortunately, today there's nothing left. And so we honor that memory and make ourselves relevant once again here at the Barrymore Film Center.
Well, and it sounds like you have a lot to draw on as far as, how you might reflect it in your programming, the history, and also just, future museum exhibits. I mean, do you have anything in the works that you can share for future exhibits?
Actually, this exhibit is coming down now. In fact, today we were just downstairs working on dismantling the exhibit. Again, we've borrowed, different artifacts from 12 different lenders. Everybody, contributed, from the Museum of Modern Art to the Museum of the Moving Image, from the City of New York, Museum of the City of New York, from the Margaret Herrick Library of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and, private collectors from around the country. So that's all going to be, packed up, and it's going to wind up, going back. And then our next will be the original power couple. And it's going to be Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks, who again made all their early films here in Fort Lee. And so that will open up as of June 10th. And then we will have the following exhibit on that will be a poster collection that will be exhibited. That'll be probably January of 2024. You always have to stay probably 6 to 8 months ahead here because it does take a lot of time and effort to bring all this. These exhibits run anywhere from $125,000 to $150,000 to mount. And again, the Borough of Fort Lee has been incredibly supportive. We do our own fundraising to do the things that the borough does not compensate us for. They gave us a good running start, and as we grow, their contributions will be their operating contributions will be less and less, to the point where we'll be self-sufficient, and and they will just be our landlords. But it's vision. A lot of small municipalities in New Jersey just aren't doing this kind of thing, and we're so thrilled that the Borough of Fort Lee has been as generous and as long-sighted as they have been. So it's great. And in the interim, we wound up building this 21,000 square foot facility, which has a museum, which has a beautiful lobby, has a 250 seat auditorium, which we can show 35 millimeter film, 70 millimeter film, 4K digital, and we have a full stage with a full orchestra pit that also has a beautiful theater organ for silent film accompaniment. So
that's impressive.
Here we are.
Yes. Now, have you had live accompaniment yet then?
Oh, absolutely. We've done, I think, 5 films to this point where we have had organ accompaniment, or we actually had the New Jersey Festival Orchestra here in October doing Phantom of the Opera. So we had 24 pieces in the pit doing a live orchestral accompaniment to that film.
Now, I know you've got a long history in theatrical exhibition. I mean, how does this theater compare to the other theaters that you've had in your past that you've worked in and owned?
Well, this is rigorous because it's we're open on a regular basis on Wednesday, alternate Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and it's a new film every show. It's not like we book one film in for the week. This is a new film every show. So you're having 5, 6, 7, 8 films a week coming in, going out. It's a lot of bookkeeping. It's a lot of muss and fuss. And again, we're showing films in 35 millimeter, in 70 millimeter, or in 4K digital. So you have 3 different formats. And so, each day, because usually when a film comes in, you check it, make sure it looks good. If there's a problem with it, you send it back. I don't have that luxury. The films come in a day or two early. And so you have to really be on your toes to make sure that, you're giving the public the best possible, theatrical experience that you can give them. So that's very, very different. And then it just boils down to the standard. Make sure that your staff looks good, that everybody's friendly, that you're welcoming people. Because remember, this is where people come to revisit their dreams. Somebody came to me the other day and they said, "Oh, nobody knows you're open." I said, "Do you love movies?" And the lady goes, "Well, not really." I said, "Then why would you want to be here?" This is a place built by movie lovers for movie lovers. All right. And if you're not interested in films, then why would you want to be here? All right. And then because we do, I don't know, 1,000 people a week who show up here. And each one of these folks that come in here, they're just revisiting their dreams. The films they saw years ago in the theater, now they can revisit them on the big screen. You also have, a lot of film students that have been coming here to see these films, unlike any place else they can see them. You have a couple of places in the city, New York City, that you go into, like the film, Forum, which is a great place to go. But these screens are bigger. Our ability to show different formats are greater. And we do really cherish, the reputation that we're looking to build.
So you can bring it local a little bit. Have you had a lot of out of town visitors? I mean, how is it as a destination?
I would say 60% of our patrons are out of town.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is built. This is a regional facility to bring people, to see great films here in downtown Fort Lee. This wasn't built for the locals. I mean, and in fact, in this day and age, there is no such thing as building a theater. For years, I had a wonderful affiliation with the Palace Theater in Lake Placid, New York. And I'm telling you, the family that owns that, the Clark family, wonderful people. And even there, that's not built just for the people. It's been operating since 1926. That covers like an 80-mile region of people that come from all over to go to that theater. If it was, there's only 1,800 people living in Lake Placid. That theater could never survive just by those people coming in. And you can't always count on people who are coming in, to ski or to swim. Every theater has to have a regional appeal, because if it doesn't, it can't survive. And here we have people coming in from New York City. We had a lovely couple the other day from Albany, New York, who wanted to see a certain film. They want to see Grand Hotel. We've had people from Pennsylvania, from Cape May, Trenton, New Brunswick. They want to see these films, and there's no other place to see them many times in 35 millimeter.
So it is a destination then. So how do you, for a visitor, how do you suggest they make the most of the experience? Because you've got the museum, you've got the films. What's the best way to go about approaching that?
Spend some time. We have free parking, and so it's not like anybody's going to be having to pay. And you come here and enjoy it. And you know what? If it's a little quiet, we'll take you through the entire building. And we have a very chit-chatty staff here who will talk your ears off. And they're very pleasant. We have a great manager here. And even the kids, that are part-timers, really are very proud of the uniform that they wear and the information they possess and the place that they work. They're very proud. It's a matter of creating this unique corporate culture here that, it's both, we're here to present something special, and we're also here, as proud, basically, parents of the films that we show. And even the kids, are into it in a very big way. And I should say, 17, 18, I wouldn't say kids. I'm 69 years old, so 17, 18 is still is a kid at this point in time. But everybody's very proud of their duties here, and we take it very seriously.
So for people who come from out of town to see the film center, is there anything locally that they can go see that kind of evokes the history of the area, cinematically speaking? Unfortunately,
no. The things that, we're always most proud of is, how many studios were in town. And the only thing we did is the former Fort Lee Film Commission is that we put up a dozen markers around the town where film history was made. Where Alice Guy Blaché, who was the first woman in cinema history, and was the first woman who owned a studio in cinema history. Even before women had the right to vote. We have, for example, placard there showing where her studio was, but the studio's long gone. All the studios are gone. They burnt down in the 30s, and There was only one that was left, and through the 70s and 80s, and became a film exchange, and that's now gone too. But there are placards around the town, and then there's Cliffhanger Point, where Pearl White shot many of the Perils of Pauline.
Oh, that actually sounds pretty great.
Yeah, it's on the Palisades. You have to know your way to get out there. It's a path that gets out. It's part of the Palisades State Park Commission area, but and it's usually smarter to have somebody to take you out there. But it's still there. But yeah, most of the visible film history is unfortunately gone. That's one of the reasons why this building is here, so it can remind people of some of the great moments. I mean, in 1915, when Universal Pictures was founded, Carl Laemmle, who was its founder and principal owner and executive producer, he built the world's largest studio right here in Main Street. And then, of course, a year later, he moved out to California, and the studio was taken over by Samuel Goldwyn and then Louis J. Selznick, whose son, obviously, David O. Selznick, produced Gone with the Wind. So it was kind of interesting to see that we have such an amazing history here with so many people who came through and made movies in Fort Lee.
Now, were people aware of this when you, like, how hard of a sell was it to start this? Were people aware that this was the birthplace of American film? Did they understand the importance of it?
Well, it's very funny. There was a gentleman named Tom Myers, and Tom was the director of Cultural and Heritage Affairs here in town. And he pretty much spent the last dozen years, if not longer, promoting this. And everybody finds it fascinating. Everybody thinks it was great. But there's an old legend, I'm saying there's an old saying,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes like this: when the facts contradict the legend, print the legend.
Right.
So the legend is that everything was Hollywood. And when you say, well, no, the original film town was here on the East Coast, and that these films and these film directors and these film producers got their start here, it becomes very easily dismissed. All right. And even though, I mean, it's historical fact, and I said it earlier, I'll say it again, that this was the motion picture capital of the world. Thousands of films were made here. I mean, when you're talking about, directors and producers, I mean, that started their careers here, whether it be a D.W. Griffith, whether it be a Max Sennett, whether it's, Fatty Arbuckle or a Buster Keaton. I mean, these people all got their starts here, all right? And it's amazing that once they all wound up going out to Hollywood, everybody forgot what happened here. And it's interesting. It's when you tell people this, sometimes people go, "Oh, that's interesting," and sometimes other people will say, "Oh, that's nonsense. That no, it never really happened. You're exaggerating." And no, the truth is the truth, And it's so that's why you need a living representation that people can come and learn a little bit more. So, but again, it's not only an educational experience. Not only are we trying to, do a certain amount of educational outreach, but it's also we want to entertain people. And it's not just about the history. It's also about, appreciating, the films in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and certainly through into the 21st century. I mean, that's the key. But yeah, and now, it's so funny how everything is turned. There's more film production now in the East Coast than anywhere else in the country.
Is that
between
true?
New York. It's absolutely true. New York,
Wow.
New Jersey, oh yeah. I mean, even when you go down to North Carolina and Georgia, there's more film production here on the East Coast because they've been, I'll say here in New Jersey, especially through the New Jersey State Film Commission. Steve Gorlick, who's the executive director, has done an amazing job. But you also have, even in New York, I mean, very aggressive, tax incentive programs. New York, New Jersey, even Pennsylvania, very aggressive. Well, they didn't do that out in California. They just assumed that everybody was going to be shooting, out there like they did, for a generation or two. But now here, there's a lot of film production. You're booking studio space way. We'd love to have film production back here in Fort Lee. And we do some commercial work and we do some documentaries. and we do some TV shows, but it's not to the volume that it used to be. That's for sure.
But it's alive. It's still going. And I love that you're reflecting that in your programming, that it's the full history of cinema.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because cinema is ever evolving. It's not a static art form. And to this day, I'll say this to anybody who will listen, that American filmmaking is our greatest cultural export. All right, and yet it's something, it's how we view ourselves as a country. It's how we viewed ourselves stylistically. It's how we viewed ourselves. How people would walk, how people would talk, how they emulated the people that were on the screen. How they dressed. How they smoked a cigarette, or in this day and age, how they don't. I had a conversation with one of our board members about a year ago, and I was saying, we were talking about propaganda in film, and he said, "Well, all film is propaganda." I said, "Well, it's a fine line between propaganda and point of view." All right, and in this day and age, that line is even blurred, even greater, because people, everything has to have such a deep measure. But ultimately, for film to survive in this day and age with so many different outlets, all right. Somebody said, "Oh, the golden years of Hollywood, the golden years of filmmaking." You want to know something? This is the golden age of filmmaking now, and I'll tell you why. Because you have cable, you have streaming, you still have theatrical representation. You have so many outlets that they are begging for product. Begging.
Right.
There's more film production going on than ever before. It's almost like the cruise industry. While I remember probably, when I was a freshman and sophomore in high school, and going down to the New York waterfront and seeing all these huge ships that are going to be, scrapped or mothballed because, everybody was flying jets. The cruise industry now is bigger than it's ever been. There are more ships being built. I mean, somebody said, "Oh, the Titanic was such a big ship." Well, the Titanic was 880 feet long. Some of these cruise ships are 1,300 feet long, and they're 140, 150,000 gross tons. So yeah, everything's come around. There's so much film production now in an industry that was going to be dead when television first came out. Remember that?
Yes.
Television came out, they went to CinemaScope because, oh my God, you can't compete with TV. But you know what? You can, and they have. That's for sure.
Right. It has to evolve. And it's interesting because you're right. There's so much more access to view and so much more access to make it. And that really does, again, begin with Fort Lee and how people just got to work and made the films.
Oh, and people also forget that the first studio, was the Black Maria in West Orange, New Jersey. It all started with Thomas Edison as an industry. Even though Edison was a pioneer in developing the camera and certainly the projector, that he used. And of course, a lot of that was to enhance. Remember, Edison came on the scene, not to make a better movie camera. He was trying to create an instrument that could be used in concert with his phonograph. He saw, well, film would be great if it could talk. Film would be great if there could be sound that accompanied it. Hey, guess what? I have all these patents on the sound equipment, and it never caught fire. It did. The only reason why, his patents, for synchronized. That's my phone. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
But the reason why sound synchronization with motion picture, projection, didn't come into vogue until the late 20s was because, what happened? Very simple. There was millions of people going every single week to see movies in the mid 20s. By the late 20s, that number decreased by about 35%. And people go, well, why did that happen? Very simply, radio, theater of the mind. Once radio wound up in every house, people thought, well, I don't have to go out. I can sit home with my family. That sound familiar? Mm-hmm. And so what happened was the studios dusted off all those old patents, and they came out, with sound, a synchronized sound and a motion picture projection. If you watch a film like Singing in the Rain, and people go, the public demanded more, which is not really true. Just, I hate to say it. Remember when you had a vinyl record, and then the next day, all of a sudden, you couldn't buy vinyl anymore? You only could buy CDs. Well, it was the same thing. One day it was silent films. The next day, it was sound. Although the sound didn't catch on until Europe, until pretty much World War II, and then after that, I mean, because it's technology, you have to convert the theaters. It's the same thing today with digital projection. I mean, all of a sudden, how many theaters were put out of business because they couldn't afford, to upscale and upgrade their
That's
theaters
right.
to the tune
Yeah.
of $100,000, with digital projection. So, yeah, it's an ever evolving industry.
Right. There's just this theme of moving into the future, keeping up and evolving. And I mean, I guess that just leads me to the question of what are your hopes for the future of the center? Because it's so new now. There's so many possibilities.
Well, one of the things we do, because we have a full stage, we do some live things here pretty much on an every other month basis. We did a wonderful program. We had a wonderful troupe from Broadway, and they were doing a wonderful they did a wonderful program with doing from music from Broadway to Hollywood, and it was really tremendous. We had a wonderful audience. We sold out, and so it was a live performance, and it really was very exciting. And so we're doing Frank Ferrante's An Evening with Groucho, the one-man show in June.
Yes.
And we are doing later on in June, we're doing the New Jersey Festival Orchestra is going to be doing an evening of music by John Williams. So that'll be a full 80-piece orchestra. So we'll bring in different organizations and different groups from different backgrounds, and certainly attracting different audiences that will discover the Barrymore Film Center in a different way. All has to relate to film, but for those who aren't film fanatics, hopefully the live may interest them in a way that they can come in. And plus, of course, we have the museum, and the museum has brought in a very unique audience as well.
So it's bringing in people who are new to film history. Then the museum is
absolutely,
yeah.
And the one word is they're astonished. Really.
Oh, that's great. I love to hear that.
I mean, and because remember, we're on a corner here. We're downtown. People come in. Oh, can I come and see? And they come in. Now, this was designed, for a 15 or 20 minute walkthrough, and yet some people wind up in there for 2 hours.
Oh,
and
wow.
And I don't know why, because I think they read every word of it. Our museum curator, Professor Richard Kozarski, did a beautiful job in all the write-ups, which actually takes you on the story and the history of the family. And some people read every word of it and then start from the beginning again. And these are people that I don't normally see, coming to the movies here, but they do appreciate, the history and certainly the contribution that the Barrymore family made, to their art. So it's astonishment. That's the word.
That is so encouraging to hear.
It is.
This has been fascinating to talk about. But before I let you go, I want to know if there's anything else you want kind of prospective visitors to the center to know about the Barrymore Film Center.
I want people to come and rediscover big screen moviegoing. I want them to understand that this is their new home for, classic moviegoing. Which, by the way, has fallen by the wayside. We all, for too many years, have gotten used to uncomfortable chairs, dirty theaters and small screens. I think this is a time to rediscover that there's something else out there, and in a way that we can revisit our dreams. And I think that's the message that I hope people get from our conversation.
Well, it's a very powerful message. I really appreciate your passion for this and for you taking the time to talk to me today, Nelson. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Anytime, and we'll see you at the movies.
The Barrymore Film Center is included in my book, The Classic Film Fan USA Travel Guide, over 500 attractions for road trips and online exploration. It's available wherever you buy books online. You can find out more at watchingclassicmovies.com, where I'll also share further information about the Barrymore Film Center. Thank you for listening. This is Kendall Groover, watching classic movies. Until next time.